Greetings.
Greetings, Dante. Greetings, Ia. Can't hear you. You're muted. Or your volume, your looks like your audio's not connected yet.
Hey, Mama, how you doing?
Okay, when the volume comes on. Yes. We're trying to have this happen. Let's see, maybe we can give you some
I
help on.
I can hear you, Tasha.
Yeah, we can't hear Ia. We can't hear Nzinga.
Okay,
Yeah.
I heard her.
Oh, okay, I can't hear her. Okay. We're
I did.
experiencing
I thought,
technical
yes,
technical fun. We're experiencing technical.
that's all right.
All right.
Digital
Well,
life.
understanding that we are experiencing technical fun, welcome everybody to our Joko today. And can I look at that title slide, Yusuf?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And we are in the culminating section of our almost 2-year series on creating the world we want, in which we used Neely Fuller's 9 areas of human activity to divide up the world in our consideration and contemplation as we ask, what are the essential things that we need to do and look at, as human beings to create the world we want, a more just world, a world where materials are appropriately distributed, a world where folks can expect to receive just treatment, right? All the things that um, uh, people uh, of good nature and of good character are wanting to see manifest in the world. And so much of that, of course, uh, involves recovering, right, from a few centuries of a white supremacist and colonial paradigm that has kind of hemmed us up in various ways. And so we have looked at the area of economics, we've looked at government, we've looked at education, we've looked at uh, media, we've looked at health, we've looked at sex and society, sex and sexuality. And here we are looking at art in the world we want. And of course, I am so excited, as you all know, to be having this discussion about dance, right? The dance arts. And we are looking today at understanding and preserving Black movement cultures. Our third guest, James Simmons, isn't yet with us. We look forward that he will be able to join. Um, Things do happen, so we will go with the flow. Yes. But here we are. Yusuf, your screen is no longer shared. I'm not
I
seeing.
know. I,
Okay.
I I will fix that momentarily.
Okay. Okay.
But you can keep going.
And indeed I will. Okay. And so um one of where we wanted to start is somewhat at the beginning. And I say somewhat at the beginning because something that struck me as I have talked to all of you about when in preparing um, for this panel was the dynamic of the minstrel show, the dynamic of minstrelsy in America, right, in the United States, and all that, right, one of the most popular, reputed to be the most popular entertainment form in an era where, there were human zoos, in an era where there were, all kinds of explanations of through what was called, right, scientific racism to explain, right, academically why the exploitation of non-white peoples and particularly African peoples was justified, right, was logical, was scientific, our, this notion of our inferiority, right? And so minstrelsy, headed up by the image of Jim Crow, um, becomes the theater of shaming and demeaning the African body, shaming and demeaning African folkways, shaming and demeaning specifically African dance. And that was not lost on me, right? That kind of poetic piece was not lost on me, because of course, Jim Crow then becomes the emblem of the laws that literally restricted and contained our bodies, literally had us frozen in a gesture of humiliation, right? We had laws that contained our body and our movement, what we could literally do with our bodies in public, right? We had laws about how we could behave in our worship spaces. We had laws that absolutely confined and criminalized, right, our bodies and our cultures. And we had the beginning of the stereotypes that we're still combating today, worldwide, and certainly in this country. So this kind of, and to a few more steps back, the Jim Crow image, right? The person who is credited with starting the minstrel show phenomenon, and the father of the minstrel show, and the projection of this Jim Crow image, said he gathered the idea for Jim Crow by observing an old Black man dancing, right? An old Black man who had some kind of infirmity, some kind of crippling in the leg, and he was hopping about, and he was doing what we do, right? And he just found it ridiculous and hilarious, and he thought that this was the perfect emblem to represent all that is wrong with African people. And so even during that time, and throughout, that the time of the minstrel show, of the proliferation of memorabilia, on through the end of Jim Crow laws and segregation, Black artists have persisted in uplifting, right, our culture in its dignity, right, and in its authenticity. When we look at the Zora Neale Hurstons, when we look at the Pearl Primuses, when we look at the Alvin Ailey's, and before even let me see, what was the brother's name who I've learned about? His name is Hemsley Winfield, right? Bringing into the arena of dance theater traditional movement, right? And the attempt to reclaim our dignity. And so we come on down, right, these generations to this era in the late 60s and 70s and early 80s, with the trailblazing of Black traditional African cultural dance, absolutely unapologetic, in full expression. And so that's where we're starting, okay, with our blazing trails for traditional culture. And then Nzinga, I'm going to ask you to start us off talking about the origins of the Guinea Senegal dance, just the history of laying those foundations in the late 70s and 80s, and please share that story.
Okay, first of all, thank you for this day and this panel today. I was trying to get in here. I'm using my phone now, so I just put my tablet down to get in and speak so you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Hi, Dante, and everybody else on the panel.
Hey, Mama, how you doing?
Tasha, you just mentioned about the shame and the degradation that was put upon our dance and movement expression during a certain period of time. And it wasn't until Madam Catherine Dunham and Pearl Primus came with steps that we were proud to learn, proud to share. They gave joy, they gave empowerment, and they gave a different type of expression and perceptive of our cultural dance. And to this day, we are still studying Miss Catherine Dunham technique. And for Miss Pearl Primus, she was the first African American woman to go to Africa to get a fellowship to study traditional African dance. So when she brought that back, and the dance that we still learn today, which is called funga, it's a welcome dance, and it's one of the first dances that I teach in my classes, just to give an homage to her and to get a feeling of what we're about to, the journey that we're about to take when we step into African dance and drum culture. It's not just the dance, because it's a marriage of the two. The drum is very important. In fact, the djembe drum represents unity, communication, and healing. So I can say when I started, which was in 1976, and I go by the years because I remember my age. And it was after, well, I'll say 1975, because I had just had my daughter and I was looking for a dance class in the community that I could just work out and get myself back in shape and get back in tone. And I wanted to get closer to my culture at the same time, because I was studying African and diasporic Pan-African politics, but I wanted to expand on that and including the culture. So it wasn't until 76 that I heard about this group of magnificent drummers and dancers who had came to Los Angeles with the intention of starting an African dance company to bring the culture to the West Coast. It had been very prevalent and strong and heavy on the East Coast, New York, Philly, the whole area in the East Coast. They were way ahead of us because they had forerunners and pioneers of the drum, like Elijah Kamara and Olatunji, that were in New York, and they were working, they come straight from Africa. So there was another guy, his name was Ibrahim Kamara. He had been an artist in the Ballet Senegal for many years. He was an outstanding musician. I don't just like to call the drummers because they do more than that. He was a musician and a visionary. And he had been working in, like I said, the whole East Coast, Baltimore, Boston. And this is where he had trained Masamala Kamara, may he rest in peace. There's so many names I'm gonna call, but they all gone now, bless their heart. And yeah, he assembled. His vision was to assemble some of the best artists that would be willing to travel across the country, leaving their jobs, leaving their families, and coming to be the pioneers and set the foundation in motion for West African dance and drum culture. And among those people were Ibrahim Kamara, Papa, we call him Papa, Nana Yao Seydoux, people know him. He's working in Encinitas now. He was one of the originals. Masamba Diop, I think Masamba lives in Vegas. He's still alive. The wonderful, incomparable Hassan Conte, who is in Washington, D.C., after coming here to Los Angeles first. So it was at least 10 or 12 of them. They were also supported. A lot of people don't know that Tom Bradley, who was mayor at the time, welcomed them into the city, gave them the keys to the city, and helped them get a residence, house big enough near USC where they could all stay and live and function and create and just get that foundation started. He was very instrumental in that. And we have to remember that also, because it wasn't that many people in the city that were willing to support this style of dance. Now, I want to be very clear. There was African dance and drum in Los Angeles, in California. It just wasn't djembe. We had congas, we had drums from Nigeria, we had Congolese teachers and drummers and dancers. We had Caribbean drummers and dancers. The missing link. And when they came and it hit the West Coast, it was like a fever when the dance and drum of the djembe culture came. So yeah, so there was other styles of dancing here, but the drummers, everybody got that fever. And it wasn't just so much a fever, but it was another advance and an evolution of our culture. And we were getting healed by hearing these different and new sounds, this language that the djembe brought, and the movements that accompany the rhythm. We were learning the language, and we had to learn and study the language of the dance, and found out that we were getting healed spiritually, physically, and mentally by absorbing the elements of the culture. And like I said, this was like 1976. They came and they called it the group Kumpo at the time. And there were other dancers, wonderful dancers in the city that had came to the classes and had started joining the did some performances in the city. Even before I got started, I was in college at the time, and I had my young daughter still, because I could only come when I could. But when I did, that was it. That was it. And I know you wanted to know the moment when the spiritual part hit each one of us.
Actually, that's later. That's later in
okay,
later
I'll bring that back.
It's in another
But,
part. Yeah, it's in another part. I'm trying to stretch.
Dancers in all genres of dance had started coming to the classes. People that you would not even expect that was interested were coming to the classes. A lot of women, but there were some men also. And they stayed, and he did exactly what he intended to do. He trained specific dancers. He taught the culture. He taught us not only to be performers, but he said, when you finish performing, this is the guy, Ibrahim, when you finish performing, remember, people are looking at you coming and going. And they also going to ask you questions. You have to know what you're doing. You have to understand why you're dancing, what you're doing for the community, what your role is. We are teaching you and shaping you to be cultural ambassadors. And that's the name that I even pass on today, that we are cultural ambassadors, and we have to take that responsibility seriously. And at the time, when I was just wanted to be a dancer, I didn't know the impact that we were having on, it was having on us and even the community. But later, years later, and being more involved and engaged in the community, we could see the change and the joy. We could see the empowerment inside each other. How the community responded and how they felt before and after, and the response and reaction from them. This is what needed. This is what was needed, and so we continued to have opened up classes. We were at the Malcolm X Community Center at the time. We had rehearsals there. We had classes there. Dadisi Sanika was the director of the Malcolm X Center. And Dadisi would come and stand at the door and watch until Papa said, "Boy, what are you doing? Come on and get in here. You need to dance. I know, I can see you a dancer." And Dadisi was in the martial arts, and he could move, and he could do acrobats, and he was quick. So he caught on very, very fast. And that's how him and Hashim and his wife, they joined the group. And this was years later, we formed Mori Nimba. Because after our first big contract, which was at San Diego Wild Animal Park, it was a summer of events. Yeah, this is the group. It was a summer of events. This is Mori Nimba right here that you see on the screen right there. And you can see people, most of those wonderful drummers are gone. Baja was an actor and a writer. You see Nana in the front, Master Mala.
Yes.
You see Papa in the back over there. Suleiman over to the side with the June.
Yep.
The ladies in the back, there's Dadisi in the back, Omalafe, Heshima, of course, the terrific Tarikiki and Nina, and straight in the back was a brother called Wali Kareem, who was really instrumental in bringing Pagai and all the group here because he had met them in New York. He invited them to come to Los Angeles. He was a poet. He hadn't started dancing. Wasn't a dancer, but he was a wonderful poet. He invited them here first, and they liked it, and they set up the communications and negotiations for them to make their way across the states. So yeah, that's this picture here is
a gem.
it's a gem because the energy so much energy that we put into our rehearsals and our training and our performances and to each other. And
Yes.
to know that those souls are not with us anymore, I have to give honor and respect each time I do anything right now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'm so pleased to recognize some of those faces at the time that I came into the dance with
A
that
little kid.
young girls, a mere 19. A mere 19, and Fumi was what, 20, 21 or something?
Right.
Boy, young. Boy, we were young. And yes, I remember all those lessons. I remember understand why you dance. I remember cultural ambassadorship. I remember because it was baked in. It was baked in to the teaching. Never a separation from the lineage, from like the livingness of the dance, the lineage, the purpose, the import.
Yes, there are decades that from 76, let's say 86, 96, 2006, different decades of people came in.
Yes.
Dance classes, Culture Fever stayed, and it just expanded. Dadisi later went to Long Beach where he started the dance classes over there. Everything was an outgrowth. We were expanding and moving around. I stayed in Los Angeles. I went to Guinea for almost 2.5 years, studying and doing research, getting what do you say, certified, and getting all the extras that I could get because I could see the context and when the Kakilambe spirit came out. Because they took me to the forest and they showed me the Kakilambe. I was given the opportunity to go to Ballet Africain's rehearsals and just sit there like a little kid, just enthralled and just soaking it all in as much as I could. So, and I like to say that most of the dance companies in America and anywhere the template was Ballet Africain.
And on that note, and before we shift to Dante, can you talk about the mission and goals, the legacy of Ballet Africain, particularly that Pan-African legacy, that cultural unity legacy? It's so important.
Yes, it is very, very important because inside the Ballet Africain is like the template and the prototype that I wanted to use for Kuman Kele. Ballet Africain members, I think it was over 30 of them, and they came from different ethnic groups in Guinea. You know, the Fulani, the Manding, the Susu. But each one, different districts, but each one, when they were chosen to be Ballet Africain members, it was their responsibility and their assignment to learn everyone's culture, everyone's dance, rhythm, and song to represent as one when they went out to the world to perform as Ballet Africain. So I wanted Kuman Kele to have the same type of mindset that I wanted us to learn every style of Pan-Africanist dance, Cuban, Brazil, Haitian, wherever we were taken, to master those dances, to understand them, because that's how we preserved our culture from West Africa, wherever we were taken. And whoever were the gatekeepers, the cultural keepers there, those are the people I tried to get in contact with to be the master teachers for us. So yeah, that was my vision.
Yes,
and that vision was an offshoot of Ibrahim and Papa's vision.
Yes.
And that's how the tradition has gone on. And right now, the people, the children out here are my granddaughter's age. This is a whole new decade now, and Dante's in that age group, and they're
Yes.
doing a wonderful job. The baton has been passed. We don't have to worry.
And
They're
so
doing the job. They know the assignment.
they know the assignment. They know the assignment. And on that note, good brother Dante, please tell us about your lineage and the parent company Conqueron on the East Coast. You are now a part of a dynamic peer group of teachers and legacy holders. I'm going to ask you to comment on how your generation, well, first go ahead and talk about that learning legacy, and then I'm going to follow up with my second part of that question.
Yes, thank you all so much, and greetings again, Mom and Zinga. Greetings again, everyone. Thank you so much for having this beautiful panel. This is something that is truly needed, at this, time, the state of the world. So I'm so excited to be able to share and truly honored. And I first want to give thanks to all of my, elders and those who have, truly poured into me. My first, teacher, Hassan Conte, Babacar and Jai. I could, go the, list goes on, those first people who like truly inspired me to step into this culture with strength and fearlessness. I'm just so thankful to, all those great ancestors that have, truly, stand behind me and encourage me, and they have truly, set me on this path to be able to share this living culture. I'll give thanks. So I just wanted to start with there.
Yes.
But literally, my life has been a lot of firsts. I was born in Frankfurt, Germany. Both of my parents were in the service, in the army, and they met there in Germany. And I grew up as a young boy in Southeast Washington, D.C. That time, that's when DC was Chocolate City. So that was Africa, to me. And so it just wasn't a great time, for DC. I would say, as far as like what was happening in the streets, and especially in Southeast, which was, not the I would say it was like truly, kind of an impoverished area of DC, and just all the struggles that come along with that. Again, all the struggles that come along with being a first generation, Black man, going through that, and raising a single parent household, a lot of firsts, and so I can say that in my journey, I was able to, graduate high school, first man in my family to go to college. And my, freshman year of college, I was working thank you, Mama Zing. I was working as a lifeguard, to subsidize college. When I presented the idea of going to further my education, my mom was like, you got to kind of figure it out, because I didn't go to school. So all the financial aid and all those things, I had to start then creating community around, furthering my knowledge. And so, still didn't have much purpose in life, just kind of going through the motions, like what, people tell you should be and where you should be going in life. You should go to college, or you should do this and you should do that, but still not really expressing what Dante wanted to do and what I, desired, and because it hadn't been unlocked. So I would say, that summer, freshman year, just like as a lifeguard working for DC Parks and Recreation, there was this compound in Southwest Washington, DC called Randall Recreation Center. And there was a pool that was and a huge brick wall that separated us from a recreation center, which was a daycare during the day. And so in the evening, they would have, especially Saturday afternoons, you would hear all these, drums, people yelling, people, all kinds of stuff going on. And we couldn't see over the fence, we didn't know what was going on over there, essentially. And so one day, one of the EIs, who I promise she's one of the elders in the community, she was my supervisor. She said, "You guys need to take your butts." So she didn't say butts. She said something. "You guys need to take your butts over there. It's going to change your life." And so on my lunch break, I was walking to 7-Eleven to get something to drink, and the gate was open because they kept the gate locked. I walked in, there's this huge sign that says Conquer West African Dance Company, and like kind of just sitting like gracefully on the couch on the park bench, watching people stretch inside of this facility. Kids running around, and there being people, items being sold, and like it's just like this is a whole community. And I walked up to him, and I never danced professionally before, didn't really understand the dance game, had, maybe, signed up for an elective at school, trying to figure it out. So I knew you kind of had to audition and things that we had read about and studied, but I didn't know the process. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey, oh, this is a dance company. How you do this? How do you audition? How you join? He said, he's joining. We don't do auditions. You come Tuesday and we'll see what you can do. And kind of like, it's just like, we'll see what you can do. Like, I'm just a kid from next door, right? So I went and told my aunt that I had met this, African guy, and he told me to come to his African dance, rehearsal. And she was like, "What is his name?" He's like, I said, "His name is Papa San." She said, "You met Hassan Kante?" And had to know she had went to Howard and saw him, there, and had had the chance to experience him at Howard University. She was like, "You're definitely going." And that Tuesday was actually the senior company rehearsal day. So I walked in and just saw. When I remember it, it's just I had never seen my people move that way. I'm talking about like I'm standing up and the feet are at my head. People are jumping up to the ceiling, and it's like they're speaking with their bodies. I could tell that there was like some sort of exchange between these drums, which I didn't quite have the name of yet, but I just say that was the beginning, and able, coming into where they just ran the repetition. I had a lot to catch up on because I didn't start in dance class. So what I would do is now back in session at school, about 4 times a week, I would catch the MARC train or the commuter train from Baltimore after classes down to DC, and I would get their rehearsal started at 7. I would get there about 5 o'clock because that's when the Papa San would kind of, take over the space. He would try to get there to take a nap, and I would disturb his nap to ask him what the steps were so I could dance when the rest of the company came. I got tired of watching after a while, and like figuring it out on the side. I'm like, somebody got to show me. So I would come and like learn directly from him, what the steps, what was Dundumba, what did it mean? What was, what is Manjani? What is all these things? I had an opportunity, to have some one-on-one with him before the rest of the company got there, which was really special. And I met Babacar and Jai because Babacar and Jai would come and set some pieces and some work on Takankaran. And I realized that he was up in Baltimore, right where my school was, to take class. So I started taking classes with Papa San, and I would take classes with Babacar and Jai, who was at the time, Mariama Abbas was there with them. They both braided hair together. And we would have class from like 4 p.m. to like 10 p.m. It was like conference every Saturday. So you get your taste of Conqueror on Saturdays in the afternoon, then go up to Baltimore and get a taste of Babacar and whoever else had dropped through, Sabar, Kutiru, everything, just like the whole 9 yards. So that I was kind of like thrown into this like, you know, uh, huge culture where I got a chance to see the richness of the culture early on, with Conqueron hosting a lot of the world's top artists in our culture, and more than just artists, but just like amazing human beings. And with some of I would say this: the biggest lesson I got was I grew up in DC. My uncle sometimes would take us up to see the Smithsonian museums. We would go to see the White House. The first major show outside of the company showcase that I did with Conqueron was at the White House. That was my first show, and just to be invited to take part in that moment, not just for this this company, but for the entire culture, for our people. It was the first moment where I saw a U.S. president put his hands to a djembe. Every camera in the world was there. We were there for Malaria Awareness Day. A lot of our African dignitaries and brothers, presidents, and so on and so forth were right in the Rose Garden. And so it's like this djembe, I was able to see it as a key, and it's like I went from watching the White House behind gates as a young kid to being invited, there to share the history of, my ancestors, and beyond, and to show others that they can do the same. So that is, this saved I could just say this culture has saved my life. Coming from Southeast DC, I don't know anyone in my family or any families I knew who do this. And so I am a trailblazer in my family. I am a trailblazer in my community back home in Southeast DC. I'm a trailblazer. I just try to be a trailblazer in everything that I do, just to encourage the next generation that this, living tradition can also keep you alive. It can save your life, and just, to continue to stick with it. So
That's marvelous. I'm going to insert this part 2, right? So we heard the story of the laying of the foundation, right, of djembe culture, and about the time that Morinimba is starting its work, Conqueron gets established. I guess a couple of years later in 83, and Morinimba was what, 79, 80 something?
Yes,
Right?
78. Yeah.
78. Okay. Okay. And
But
so
see, Hassan had stayed in San Diego before he went to DC.
uh-huh.
So he was spending some time there laying down the culture also.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
This is kind of this this diaspora, the spreading of seeds all over the US, right? So or at least East and West Coast, as I know you told me that they were looking to get something started in the Midwest at the time, and it wasn't, the time wasn't quite ripe. But this, this era of establishing the companies, right? The companies that are carrying forward the tradition of djembe culture, djembe dance culture. And so, as Nzinga said, you are in her grandchildren's generation. You're in my son's generation. I could be your mother, literally, by age, right? Right. So you're a part of that dynamic peer group of new teachers, legacy holders, and I want to know what how your generation is defining itself and its goals, and what are you all seeing as the next level?
I can't speak for everyone when I say this. I would say we all have our um, own goals and aspirations, as it pertains to how we're wanting to move this culture forward with uh, the knowledge that has been bestowed upon us. I, as you said, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. You said like, you know, how are we defining ourselves and our goals, and what's the, for me, I would say my work in the culture is I want to do the things that aren't being done. I realize that, our culture is like an ecosystem. When you think about like even how we operate in our daily lives, like if there's a if like there's a clogged drain, I'm going to call a plumber. So that means that my community needs a plumber, and it also needs people who understand plumbing. It's a similar thing like with our culture. If I need the healing of a djembe, it means we need more djembe pit. There's more djembe folas cultivated. There's our culture needs just like aspects of like how do we create more resources. So we need like a resource center. I'm just like, who's going to be behind that resource center, and what is the training that goes into that. That's just kind of how my mind thinks of just like how what's not being done, and it prevents like oversaturation. It also helps the pillars that are there to stand to even be fortified, because now we're doing the work. Like when you think about like our great monuments, there's so much work that goes into like keeping our monuments like restored. So our great treasures, how do we keep them restored? How do we keep, how do we fortify the work? That's just sort of my angle. And I'm just like doing the work that's not being done, remaining consistent. I think, and it's to me, consistency and tradition go hand in hand. We talk about like traditions, things that's like been done, over and over to show, to pass down. But when those traditions are passed down, there's always an element of something added on. It's like a recipe, our great ancestors, they leave behind, maybe they didn't add lemon, but I'm gonna add lemon to mine. It's like that little thing that makes it uniquely yours, but it's still paying homage to the tradition.
Mhm.
So I think it encourages. I know Papa San would tell us, he said, man, you see, we all like a five finger. We're different, but we have to use them together. So that says that, each of our fingers has a function. Some days I may walk in feeling like a thumb. Some days I may walk in feeling like a pinky. I don't know. Oh, I don't know what my function is in that day. Someday I may have to play jun jun. I might have to play kinkini. I might have to dance. I might have to help make costumes. I might got to cook the rice in the chebujin so that we can eat after rehearsal. It's like, where do I fit so that we can all stay together? And I think, to me, the next level for our generation will be figuring out, how all of our functions can kind of, work together so that, we can make, this whole thing turn. I think that's what it is. We have so much knowledge bestowed upon us, and also the continuation of learning that knowledge, because like right now as we speak, there are ethnic groups, that are, the knowledge of those ethnic groups is slowly fading.
Yeah.
We have, that, which means that maybe in another 100 years, there's some ethnic groups in West Africa that we didn't get a chance to learn about, which is, kind of, I mean, it may not be a big deal to some, but it's a huge deal because every ethnic group, every group of people has something to offer, this great culture. So yes, that is, to answer your question, that, that's how I
That's
feel I'm defining my goals, that, just based on like what's not being done, what does the culture need, and how can we make this thing turn?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is wonderful, Dante. And I am so inspired and deeply impressed with your the way you have embodied the philosophy. You've embodied the philosophy. You've embodied the original intent. You've embodied the symbolism. You've, as they say, taken it to heart. And in a way that is not always the case. That's not always the case, even though I've never known anyone to do the culture that has not paid homage and been deeply inspired and always in humility, but in terms of using that philosophy in daily life and using that philosophy to direct your next steps, in anything. I hear it in everything you say.
Thank you.
In all the conversations we've had over the past few months, it's it radiates. It
Thank
radiates, and
you.
it takes us to a great place.
Can
Right?
I say one thing?
Say one thing, and then we're gonna talk. We are at a perfect segue point to talk about our
Okay.
next topic.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to say one thing, that I have to pay, homage again to Papa San Conte. When we had the recession back in 2008, and a lot of businesses, a lot of things were closing, a lot of people, didn't know how, we were going to continue. Our country was in a tough time. I know he still had our conference. He still made sure that everybody got there. He still
Mm,
made sure that the whole thing turned, that year as if it was any other year. And it was the most difficult year that I had witnessed our country seeing. You know what I mean? So that, when you see people who do, great works like that, and it's so many more just like him. But when you see great works like that, it gives you the fuel and determination. When I see Mama Nzinga standing,
yeah.
it's like when I see her come on and do her solo, when I see her shut it down every time, it's like, how do you stop? How do you, I gotta keep going, right? Sorry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I was going to say yes, and we here in Zinga's goddaughters and godsons have witnessed that very same work. They do the dance instructors, the leaders. They took on the responsibility of making way out of no way, of figuring out how to create gigs, of figuring out what to do when there were no gigs, of what to say, right? How many times we came together in congregation just to hear words of to keep the vision, to keep the fires lit, to keep the vision going, and that was it laid a foundation in that kind of community you're talking about, Dante, and an identity that lasts literally a lifetime. I spent how many decades in ballet and contemporary, right? Before right? I so blessedly stumbled into a class at Lulu Washington's when it was on Adams and upstairs and whatnot. And it was my transformation, and I never looked back. But that's another question for another section. What I do want to talk about, have you guys get to, right, my coming to culture moment, but is to talk about, right, we're talking about reclaiming this movement culture. I started about, talking about the shaming and the demeaning, and we're in this in this place, and the power and the victory, the triumph of this, we probably take for granted unless we sit back and just really trip on it. You know what I'm saying? But we're reclaiming our bodies, right? We're reclaiming our movement. We're reclaiming our culture, right? And one part of the body that we're reclaiming is our head, our conceptualization, our way of seeing the universe, our way of seeing the world, again, without shame, right? And throwing off the demonization of African spirituality, the way we stay connected to that other realm in everything that we do, right? And everything that we say. We're becoming more and more unabashed with that,
Right.
with our spirituality. So what I wanted to ask you next about is to comment on the social functions of the dance and movement culture, traditional movements and contemporary applications. Is there a division? Mama Nzinga, what's your comment about the social functions of it?
Well, I always say all styles of dance is African dance. Number one. Our dance was taken, modified, changed to suit other people's comfort so they could be comfortable with it. But it was still using and appropriating elements of our culture to do their cultural expression. And right now, I think, getting back to the shame part, that when I went to Africa 40 years ago, people was like cautioning me, you sure you want to go? And this and that's going to happen. And those people don't welcome us. And what are you going to do over there? Why are you learning this stuff over here? And what you going to do with it? And now, this year, we have a whole company of young people that are being embraced and supported and have left for Guinea and still going to Guinea and Senegal to study the dance and culture without all that abashment and trying to tear them down for their dream or their goals. And so that has changed. A lot of mind influencing has come to the surface of us, where we're saying, this is what I need to continue to heal myself. This is what I need to continue to take my community up. There have been more increase of job opportunities, which I saw years ago when I initiated you guys and certified you guys to be teachers and drummers. But I don't want us to focus on just that because we can get jobs from these universities, because the community is what needs the healing. The community, we have less and less cultural events now than we used to have 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They were prevalent and they were abundant, and we were shining. We were bringing forth more ideas, and like Dante said, bringing more of our own ideas and adding it to. But now we have less, and we can look at the world in America. They're rolling back the civil rights. All this to bring back that oppression, to bring that depression, to close the lid on that creative bubble that we were, building.
Mhm.
So I think we have to do more work in the community. It's nonstop. And the work that we do, the dance and the drum, is a healing modality. I learned that my vocation as a healer, I had to find what modality would I use to do my ministry, do my work in the community. So for me, it came, and I had an oracle reading. It was through the dance. Nothing else would be more important for me or more profitable for me to expand, to even evolve internally. That was it. So that's what I had to dedicate my life to, and I have for 47 years in the community. I was 26, and I'm happy to say I'm 73 now.
Right on.
I'm healthy. I can still
Yes.
do a step or two, but I don't need to because my kids will sit me down. I got you, Mama. I'll dance for you,
I love
and I
it.
love it. But
That's
and I
great.
want to say that Dante said something about being coming from the poorest part of DC. Um, Guinea is one of the poorest countries in West Africa, and out of that country, and what I saw and witnessed were the greatest musicians and dancers that came into the world from that type of environment. And I want to mention, because I talked to you about it, Tasha, when I traveled there, my birthday in January last year.
Yes, ma'am.
And I went to see the Ballet Africaine, my teachers, and Hamadou, who certified me and validated me to be a cultural ambassador from Guinea.
Yeah, we
He's
got the
still
clip.
alive.
We
He is
got the
still
clip
alive.
on the other side. You can save the story because that's coming up.
Okay, okay.
It's
But
actually coming up
but
below.
what I'm seeing is in different types of expressions in the arts now, because all art forms heal. But if we use the times and we use the culture to give expression to the times and how we can heal ourselves, like the dance I years ago when I did the Dunumba. In my mind, I want to present Dunumba in a way that wasn't so straight out of Africa, but something that we could identify with. So I said, I'm going to make use of the situation in the streets, the gangs. It was I organized two different groups of dancers that represented maybe Crips and Blood and how they, interacted with each other through the dance, through the Dunumba dance. So that's what I like to do from studying Ballet Africaine, uh, to do stories. We have so many stories. We still have years of healing that we
Yes.
have to do. That's our work. That's the main premise of the work, to heal. So I was impressed by a piece that Dante worked in, and I think it was so beautiful. It was a fashion show, and they did an homage to Chadwick, the actor from
Yes.
Wakanda, and the presentation and how it was done was just so beautiful. I said, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we need to do. Wherever our people are, we bring it to them right there, and we let them see it. We inject it, and they see how it works and how they feel, and there the healing begins. So all these type of little things, we had to not wait. Oh, they're not giving us money for this. We have to do it anyway. We don't have a studio. We have to do it anyway. We had rehearsals in the park years ago.
Mm.
We come out and do a performance, and people will say, "Oh my God," thinking that we were in highly air conditioned, beautiful studios, putting together, organizing all this work, and we were just in the grass,
Right
making
on.
this happen, creating, coming together, being unified, being creative, empowering each other. And also, Dante, you kept the spirit and the energy going during the pandemic here in Los Angeles, baby, because he was out there on the sidewalk, on the streets, still
Yes.
doing classes,
Yes.
keeping people's spirits up,
Yes.
healing people. Even when they didn't feel good, they was coming out with their little mask on or whatever.
Yes.
And we had several little gatherings, even when Mari May Faye was still alive, at Lamert Park, just using the resources that we had. And that's what we have to continue to do. Because the circumstances,
Yes.
it shouldn't stop us from creating and healing. No, we have to go beyond that and see how it's going to work and make it work.
Yes, ma'am. And it hasn't yet. That's our legacy. We created again through the era of, I'm going to say, ticked up lynching, because they still in the habit of attacking, and murdering Black people. But
This
we
modern day lynching.
yes, we were creating and expressing and innovating in circumstances that we might say objectively were more oppressive, more tense. So yes, it is our fortification as well. And now we're going back in it with that clear understanding. It is our fortification. I am a believer that one of the things that helped us survive this situation psychologically, spiritually, and remain in community was our ability to circle up, was our ability to reclaim that, literally circle and center, movement, dance, music. We were able to continue to express in a group ritual piece. You know what I'm saying? It's not been until recently that some Black people in some places have stopped dancing at parties. And we have parties like other people have them.
Right. Yeah.
And think that means that we've accomplished something or we've evolved, somehow. But I was reading an article in one of these periodicals. It was the Atlantic, and I think it was the Atlantic, right? Where this woman had published this article about the benefits of spontaneous dancing, and we should all just take a minute just to, have a little dance break. Take a dance break with your kids and just wiggle around. And what in the world be it if we could just dance and sing? And I'm like, okay, I understand what has happened here. We've observed how Black people live. This is what we do. You're right. We've observed how Black people live and said, that's a good idea. I think that looks like like a stress reliever,
Exactly. You've seen people come to class feeling depressed or looking down or dragging themselves into class. When they leave, they're up, they're joyous, and it's infectious. I've seen people from my students at UCLA that say, when my friend joined us after your class, they made us feel more happier, and we didn't even take the class. But
right.
That's what the culture does. It heals, and you don't have to engage. Some people come just to watch. You can come and watch and just get exhilarated.
Absolutely.
Get cleansed, get opened. It transcends everything else that you're going through. It is a stress reliever. It does heal your heart. It does heal your mind, and it brings back your soul.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dante, same question. What is your comment about the social function of the culture, social function of the dance music culture?
It's a conversation. That's how I was taught. Papa San always tells the conversation. It's like he always say, he would refer to areas of the choreography as sentences. I love that. We go to the last sentence, and I was like, wow, because it makes it real,
Exactly.
And so, today when I'm in the class, I'm like, oh yeah, we got a paragraph today. Like we're gonna talk today, and that's essentially what what I feel like when we see our culture displayed on stage, that's essentially what we become the storybook. So we're essentially like, sort of narrating, these words or these movements, and the drummers are, the drummers are the other half of the conversation.
Right.
Our foes like to speak, right? So like which means every drum beat and drum pattern is like the other half of that conversation. So it's like you're watching us when we're on stage. Sometimes we're not even worried about who's in the audience. We're on stage like, oh, that's my partner for this part of the dance. Oh, that's my, you're drumming and you're like, oh yeah, they're playing weird that part of the rhythm. That I like. That's that sweet spot. And I'm not even thinking about this 10,000 people out there. I'm like, I'm on stage. And what it becomes is, us dancing in the original intention of, what the whole conversation was created. Like, so if we're doing Passat, like we're dancing in harvest, we're reenacting sort of that, our goal would be to reenact, what the harvest looked like, in the village, but sort of I don't want to say an exaggerated version of that, but in a version that's sort of that anyone, no matter who you are, you can comprehend this is what we're doing, and to learn, more the intricacies of what is done during the Kasa. You would have to then, go study, with our storytellers, our griot, our jalia, our elders, you have to go to those great teachers to, to really understand the pure, the little, little nuances that's in there. And so it's sort of, I feel like when we speak on stage socially, socially, when we display this work, it's sort of like a net, to invite other people into that conversation. Be it if we're doing dances that give homage to our great ancestors, be it that we're doing dance of celebration, right? Which like for example, a rhythm like cuckoo, which Mama Zinga had her choreography with this cuckoo is amazing, right? When you think about these rhythms like cuckoo, um, these are rhythms that here in the United States they play for full moon ceremonies and celebrations. So it's like they've adopted, sort of, put new intentions to something ancient, from a times past. And the fact, when Mama Nzinga spoke to the teachings in the pandemic, my life has been just kind of looking at the world as like in like a wide shot. Like I want to see everything, all the functions, all the little details. And what I noticed was like this djembe has made it through so much, so many plagues, so many, human, um, so many, some tragic human events.
Right.
And here it is, and 2020, 2020, we're faced with yet another human world event. And it's like, how will we get through this? And we're taught that this djembe is healing. So it's like for me, I said, okay, if the djembe can make it through, these years of tragic events, in this moment we're all experience this, if I stick close to the djembe, I will make it through, right? And the only way, I had to kind of sit the idea of like maybe I'll get sick or maybe this will happen. I kind of had to sit that to the side, um, follow precautions, of course, like all the social distancing and the masks and everything and the waivers, and follow the precautions. But my goal was to show actual proof. My goal was to show actual proof. Our entire village was shut down. There weren't any businesses open. There weren't any vendors. There weren't any cars, passing through that area. And we've done celebrations. We do celebrations yearly for our ancestors there. You know what I mean? So it's like for me, it's like I wanted to show actual proof that we have to continue this culture. We have, no matter what the world event come, even if it's like this class may be my last class. It's like at least we know that there's someone who will pick up the baton and keep it going. So it's just I'm just here to show actual proof, and I think socially we become examples of that through our lineage, through our work, through our desire to be bridges of unity, and just to kind of bring the past with the present and the importance of it. If we become figures of that, it that sort of becomes like it passes off on other people. It kind of rubs off. If I become an example, it'll rub off on my homies or the people, my neighbors. It'll rub, kind of rub off on this. So that's what I think goes hand in hand with the movements. When we take these movements and the action, especially the intentions behind that come with these movements and rhythms, we then pass that on to our community, which also becomes a part of that fold.
Yes, yes. And you all have already kind of spontaneously segued into this into the mystical aspects of the culture and the mystical aspects of our culture, where there is always the recognition of that reality, and a acknowledgement of our connection to it. And just thinking about the what I can't call anything but ritual efficacy, again, and this is part of that healing modality, of the organized movement, the rhythm, all of these kinds of things, right? So we have the culture freeing us from bounds, freeing the body, but the culture also literally frees us from the body, right? And has the power to take us into transcendent realms, has the power to, right? And in speaking, I would love for you all to recount your experiences with that, because I don't even have to ask if you've had them. I know that that's absolutely the case. So sorry James couldn't join us today, but in talking about the capoeira circle, called the Hora, right? He talks about, the potency of circle and center, and the point at which of course is done to music and song, and begins with a ritual invocation, right? And as the folks who are practicing the form continue to play, as they say, right, and practice the form, so that people often reach that absorption state and asked afterward, how did you accomplish this movement? How did you do this? How to do that? They can't remember. They don't remember doing it. They don't, because of that ritual efficacy. So, but even before we talk about preservation, which you all have already also touched on, share some of that experiences, the experience of transcendence, as evoked by the practice of the culture, of the dance and drum culture. What have you seen? And Mama, yes.
I would like to speak on my own experience when I first entered the first class of djembe drums and the dancing. And I had been to other styles of dance, like I said, the Inner City Cultural Center with the great teacher Tabula Adigun, she's passed now, and who was teaching some Nigerian style dancing, and Lady Walker Vereen, who was proficient in the Catherine Dunham technique. And so I was still searching though, and I love those styles. And I stepped into that class, and I swear I literally heard my ancestor tell me, "This is it. You are home." And I was just swept away. It wasn't about having the djembe fever. It was like I finally came into my place where this is going to be my vocation. This is going to be my life. I wanted to do this, not just to perform, not just to be on the stage with people, but because my soul was elevated, my soul was touched, and I knew that I had a connection there. And I saw this in when I got certified and validated and sent out to teach the correct way in a certain method. I saw this in my students. I saw them the awakening. I saw them, and they were coming and telling me, "Thank you because you did this." And I said, "No, baby, I just helped you turn that key. I showed you where the key was inside of you. You turned it and turned yourself on to a whole new world of healing that you can do yourself." And you just stay within your culture, and you find people wanting to know more about who they were, their self-identity, and their connection to West Africa. So more questions were being asked. The shame was being thrown off. The negativity was just being thrown off because people walking into their own light and love that. And this is why, again, I say we have to keep this in the community. There's no point of where we've reached that plateau and we've done all the work, because we have centuries of healing to overcome. Ingrained perceptions and inhibitions that the dance and drum help you to get over. So we have stories to tell. People
Yes.
say, well, how do you get your stories from everybody's life? Everybody can bring a story. We have stories to tell in our history from all over the world. So, and this is the ascension time, because I see Black people, whenever we have a deep period in our history where we're being persecuted a lot, what stands out, we gravitate toward our culture. We gravitate toward our drums and our movement. We meet secretly. We give each other codes, movements, a look, whatever. We see this dance coming into different styles of hip hop now. I mean, we talked about the what was the rise, the thin rise, and that was given homage to where the crumpin came from Africa. So it's a different type of awakening now and feeling. And like I said, we get in our soul return. We are reclaiming our soul. And we need to do it together, and we need to continue to help support the young people, because in Los Angeles, there was a time period, maybe a good almost 10 years, where our drummers were, yeah, they were getting ill. They wouldn't, they didn't have the stamina anymore. And that's for a period that we lost a lot of people. So that left a dent. So the children now, we have to wait till they grow up. They were babies then. People like Quasi and Cozy and Jahan and them, they were all children. So now they have rose up and they have taken this baton. It's a little battered and got a lot of splinters in it, but we still passing it.
Right on. Dante, your what do you say about mystical experiences brought out by the drum, the center and the circle?
You know, I'm honestly say that, yeah, as a Black man growing up in Southeast DC, you become hardened, like, your spirit is, it's like a shell, and the vibration of the drum cracked it open for me. And I remember at the very beginnings, like not even wanting to share like with my boys that I was dancing, I didn't want to be talked about. That's in full transparency, because it's, sometimes, it's, I'm just, be real. Some of our brothers, express emotion, they like, it's brother's kind of soft, he's softened up on us, But honestly, what I would have loved to share, it was the first time, I was able to feel, first time I was able to truly feel and to release and to express, there's so much, DC, at that particular time, I'm not sure, I don't know if it's more or less, but it was a study that was done that DC had like 42 police departments within the district. And so, there's an energy that comes along with being, a deeper feeling that comes along with the presence of certain, law enforcement.
Yes.
So you're kind of always on guard. And this was a space where you didn't have to be on guard. It was a space where you had to release to connect, in order to, this teachers, who would share, the mystic aspects of our culture, with us along the way, and and remind us that within this conversation, that what has helped this language continue would be that spiritual energy. It's the spiritual energy that sort of protects this realm. There's a great protection that comes along with playing the djembe, with dancing to djembe, with playing any of our instruments or engaging in our culture. There's a strong energy of protection for our people. And when you engage in this realm, you are also included in that realm of protection. And so there's a protection that's meant for, sorry, Mama?
Go on.
There's a that protection we all have access to, but it requires your heart to be open to receive it. And so we have so many of our brothers who have transitioned on or who are still currently unaware of what this great protection that was left for them by our ancestors. And that it has been taken as like a joke that you can, take, for participating in this culture, you can take hits or jabs at your masculinity. There's things that you have to endure to be a part of this culture, but what you get from it would be truly something that's truly invaluable. So I could say with this culture, the mystic aspect of this culture, especially, has helped me to be able to feel, to feel and express. Like I'm stressed out from the day. You know what I mean? I'm tense. My shoulders is tense. Like when the police get behind, I'm tense. But then I'm tense because I'm on my way to class to release, and I can leave it there. But how many of my brothers don't have that privilege? And how many of my brothers are afraid to take part? How many of my sisters are afraid? Because we're not just examples to our brothers. How many of our children are afraid? How many generations after me were afraid to dance? Were afraid to, to feel and exist? So I give thanks. Again, giving thanks for the many things I'm still learning. About this culture that I have. It's so much I don't know. It's so much I don't know. Like even like I'm just hearing Mama and Zinga talk. I'm hearing you guys, you even chiming on this. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, this is new for me. Wow, I can even put a piece together. Like, okay, that's what makes sense. Okay, that's what this is all about. But if we don't have that space there to do that,
yes,
and we don't let our other, our community and our folks know that there's this space, this safe spiritual space that exists for you to be able to express yourself. If we don't, let folks know that it's open and available to you, should you choose to come. And I will hope you will be there because I'll be there.
absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Which takes us to that mention of space takes us into this questions of preservation, right? You all have agreed that the best site of preservation or the key site of preservation is in the community, right? You've already asserted that because there are, different places to preserve culture, right? There's teaching institutions that are not, right? They're from kindergarten to university. There are their means of documentation and access to archiving, really, right? Creating and establishing having the resources to put something on the shelf, if you will. And yeah, there's also the those sites of preservation that we have created out of ourselves, that you always talk about, that you just talked about, the creating, looking at the conditions that we're dealing with and continuing to create and bringing forth these what are now these cottage industries, the dance conference phenomenon, a brainchild coming from the community, teaching classes in the community. The idea of a dance class is not unique to us, but in terms of how that got proliferated and how that became, again, a spring. It's like you dug into an underground spring and people were learning and exchanging and also beginning to make livings and being able to, right, in terms of, opening up even the economy. So the question about preservation is twofold. One, starting with the issue of appropriation. And I think yesterday you called it inappropriation, but issues of appropriation. Who will carry the legacy? And I will start with you, asking you to discuss that phenomenon of the new Guinea dance camps that you were talking to me about. Who's mastering the art now? And what are the implications when we see?
Well, from my travel this past January, I saw that we have several camps in Guinea now that have been established, and they're open for the world to come and study correctly in the environment where you can see how the conceptions are, how they were formed, and and these are sprung from the imagination of the masters who were in the ballet africain. That we have Yusuf Kumbaso, who was another ballet, and then we have Mustafa, who was in ballet africain, and we have the only female that's doing have a dance camp in Guinea, and that's Muminatu Kamara, and that's whose camp I stayed with while I was there. But I also traveled in Muminatu camp is in the interior, so we had to go maybe an hour's driving to Conakry, the capital, because I wanted to visit with Ballet Africain and the director who's passed now this year. He was still there, and it happened to be my birthday. So we was making a big day of this, and we went into the area is right in the center of the city where they have built a studio for Ballet Africain's rehearsal. And I walk into the place, and what strikes me first is it's a nice big space, but the materials that they had to use are like cement or stuff that you would put on walls and stuff. There's no air conditioning. There's no oak floors and raised floors.
Right.
None of that. The whole place is made out of the same materials. And I'm saying, wow. And what you just said, Dante, by coming out of one of the poorest places of DC, genius and wonderfulness come out of those type of places. Because we know these are the masters of dance in the world. And this is what they rehearse on. But what really got me was they were taking me around, and I was taking pictures of the whole place. And they took me to a corner over here where they were still working. And I took a photo of it was outside the window was a big hole in the ground. It was looked like a drilling had been gone down deep into the earth. And I said, "Oh, they still building on to the building." And they said the Muminatu was translating for me to the assistant director, and he said, "No, this is where they had to build their restroom, the toilets." And I also found that Hamadou, the artistic director, and he had used his life savings to build this studio for Ballet Africain. Because back in the day, Sekou Touré was a big proponent of the culture, and he supplied resources and everything they needed then. But times have changed, politics have changed, and they are basically on their own. One of the reasons why they haven't been out touring like they had back in the day. But Hamadou had used all his resources, and I was like, okay, so what is this? And they said, this was the beginning of building our restroom. I said, really? They said, yeah, because the artists, we don't have a restroom inside this building. I could not believe it. The artists have to go next door to other businesses or people they live around the area and ask them to use their restroom. I thought that was like, I just couldn't believe that they had to endure this. And especially for the women, because I know how women are.
Oops.
And this was like unbelievable to me. And I said, well, and I took a picture of this, and I said, well, how much more do they need to build this so they can have this accommodation, just a basic toilet commodes? And they said $300, roughly about $300. I looked at Muminatu. I was in disbelief. I said, Mumi, I have to. I had that on me just for food and traveling expenses. But for me, that was giving back. I pulled it out of my purse and I gave it to the director. I gave it to Mumi, and she gave it to the director, who took it to the lady who was in charge of the dancers. And they broke out in dance and celebration and with thank you and thank you, thank you. And I was like, oh my God, this was meant to be. I was supposed to come here and see this and give this as a return and thank you for everything that has happened and given to me in my world from just learning African dance and drum. They told me it would take me all over the world.
Mm.
It did. They told me I would be teaching in great universities. I did. Everything they prophesied for me, it came true. So this was nothing. This was nothing to give back. But I know that I did something that would be long standing, that would be appreciated. It wasn't just a little handout, excuse me, of money that can just go in a minute. But this was something that was everlasting, and they remembered that. And I will always remember that. That was time for me to go back to do that.
Yes, ma'am. We have the clip. Our slide is a clip from Ballet African website. So there are your beloved family.
Yeah.
And we have that little clip that you sent. And we can just take a look at it. We have the story.
They need electricity. Yeah. No, they not electricity. They need like bathroom. Bathroom. Yeah, they need a bathroom. You see, they start digging here already. So they want to go to bathroom. They have to go in the people's house. They don't have any bathroom here where to use the bathroom. What about how much did all this cost? This one? What's that right there? Trying to build a bathroom. They don't have a toilet over here. They got to go to the neighbor's house.
Ça fait 2 millions. Là, nana mo bon idée. Buto wol mo ko sa bi so mo sa de fo ko sa ma. Do mu kata be fenêtre fa ma fa na. E pour le fa bara yin de su. Là, mo pa fa la c'est soit les millions. Na ba ko mo c'est ça les billes ça na. Depuis là mo ba pa la. Mo na ba ne no ko mo. Presque ça les
Yeah, like here, here to put everything together and here, they.
She was telling me how much it costs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the hole, and that's where they had to stop because they couldn't go on any further without any funds. And the government wasn't helping. There's no grants like we have here, no DCA.
Mm-hmm.
It's whoever contributes to
Which
keep them great. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Which perhaps.
But that's to say that, 40 years ago, there were no camps in Guinea, no dance camps that you can go to study. And I did witness a lot of Europeans and Westerners come and support these camps. Fields of them were coming, studying, doing research, and then they go back, and I don't know what they do with it, but I witnessed that. And I'm glad that we have an entourage of young people that we're celebrating that went back now, but we need to have something like this going every year to support the camps and every year so our children have access to the environment, the whole environment of Africa, while they're learning the cultural dance and drum. So that's another thing that we have to, support and build on because it's there.
Yes, ma'am. And Dante, I'm just going to go to you because this is all kind of in a flow. And we can go to our last slide looking at Lemert Park, right? And the Lemert Park phenomenon. And what the under-resourcing, right, or the failure to resourcing, right? We're looking at a community-created hub of Black culture, Black arts, specifically Black arts culture, appropriated by the forces of the market and the city officials who would be complicit with the quote unquote forces of the market, right? So we have the Lemert Park that I came up in, had, drums were always resounding. There was always a cultural expression, a cultural event a poetry reading, a jam session. And bottom line, of course, at the time that I came up, Museum in Black was still in place. So you could literally go in and luxuriate in artifacts, in, pieces from all of the continent. But the main thing was that there was that access. You just go in, right? You just show up for learning, for study, for entertainment, for community, right? And now it's getting draped behind the paywall. At the time that I was a kid in Lamert, a young person in Lamert, and I'm saying kid, 19, 20, right? This is about the time I was probably like 25, maybe, when the drum circle began, when IGTA began the drum circle, and the kind of energy that multiplied, it like exponentially multiplied the energy of the space. And pretty soon people were bringing out their wares and vending and selling food, and, all without any pressure. There's no requirements, no licensing, no nothing. And then
before the gate.
Yes, right. In the days before the gate, right? So this question of resourcing and what city officials can do and what they don't do. What has been your experience, Dante, on both coasts, in seeing what interested, right, leadership, so-called, can do and not do to support Black culture? Okay, and you can specifically, of course, talk about dance culture.
Coming up in Conqueron, and again, I had the privilege of seeing how Papa San, worked, to make sure that, the company could stand, be it he, is going to the meeting, be it, people, sponsors coming through to see the company rehearsals, and excuse me. I just had the opportunity to see him work and hustle, to really make this culture happen, outside of the things that, the resources that came in from class were sort of like, I'm sure not even could hold a match to what it truly, took to make a culture happen. It's the same thing, like about the infrastructure of our city. So even the city has a budget, so it's like, they have, a sure budget that's coming from another entity. When we find, our amazing cultural organizations or cities, which they become, people, our culture, in some way we lack being factored into the budget. And I've noticed that, like I said, I look at the world as like from a wide shot. I've noticed that, this culture it's the heartbeat of everything we do here. And I don't say that lightly. It is the heartbeat of everything that we do here.
Yeah.
It appears to be, that heartbeat appears to be so faint to the ears, of our great politicians. And the relationship with our culture becomes very transactional. And if that's a lie, I encourage them to prove me wrong. The relationship is very transactional. There's some diversity, equity, and inclusion dollars for a city Kwanzaa program, or for a Christmas program, or for some sort of put those dollars with the people who are going to make the decisions that's going to bring us together. And we see that when you see that when you see, our greater, when I see, Kumankele, when I see like our pillars, that are represented, I'm like, okay, You know, there's something happening there, right?
Mhm.
But on the day-to-day basis, I'm talking about a day-to-day basis. I'm in the Leimert Park probably 5 to 6 days a week. I pass through that park, even on the days, when there's not anything popping, when anything's going on up there. Our community still needs resources. Some of those people who come over to our classes when we have like food offerings and other things, do they not need food outside of the Saturdays when we have class? These are the things. They may not be able, some of them live in the park. They may not be able to make it over to the food bank. Where are our drug treatment services, our substance abuse services that are staples in that park? Where are our food banks that is a staple? And like again, I said, it's a community. This is one of the only like cultural area. There's not even an area in our nation's capital that's like Leimert Park, which says a lot.
Wow.
Come from DC. I had never seen a Leimert Park in DC. We would have DC was real black. We would make it was plenty of moments where we had our Leimert Park in different various. It could be somebody's backyard. We had Leimert Park energy, but a space that was dedicated to us,
Mm-hmm.
I think is very sacred. And I think again, a lot of entities, especially our political figures, benefit off of the presence of this great area. And so our culture, with it being such a fixture, I think as much money that is poured into DWP, that should be the amount of money that we pour, even if not more, into, and I'm just using DWP as an example, but I'm thinking about these great entities, that should be the money that's poured into our culture annually. However it's, we need that support. And a lot of us are just running on life fuel, but for how long? You know what I mean? I'll say my age, I'm 37.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 3 years at least, I started teaching, before then on the other days, but for the last 3 years, I've held down Saturdays in Leimert Park. Now, I don't know what other young man, I didn't see my boys traveling. I didn't see, people, or my boys on yachts and things, and, people doing other kind of things that are my age. And I would love to do those things myself. But, my commitment just in these last 3 years have just been to being present, because I see the importance of the consistency and being present in the community. Now I challenge, our politicians, the people who represent those areas or the people of those areas, to support and pour. There's things that are going on with like the Destination Crenshaw project. Where's the dance element to it? That project will completely remove that fountain and that park where we dance. We dance right there by that fountain. That's now gated in. When I came to California, there was no gate. So it seems like everything, that is great for us is put behind bars, starting with our Black men. We can go down that road, but I just say all that to say it's so much symbolism.
Yes.
In what's being done in our village.
Yes.
And we cannot continue to stand on the and stand by and just allow these things to happen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like we have to get folks, especially these entities that have regular budgets, pouring regularly into the people who are installing this culture, the people who are maintaining and preserving this culture in various different areas, be it in the community, be it in our education sector, wherever they're installing the culture. Like we have to continue, consistently, constantly urge the powers that be to pour, as this is like the heartbeat. This is the engine. This is the engine of us all.
Again, beautifully said, beautifully said. My comment and question for the coordinators of Destination Crenshaw is, why do you have Dante Fial on the cover of your brochure, but he doesn't have a studio in Leimert?
Oh.
Yeah, when I saw that, because we were in the midst of supporting the Afiba Center in Zinga Jabari's spot, Afiba.
Right, right.
And so that was a struggle of engaging a struggle of pushing back against the appropriation of the area without this project having any kind of plan for the economic development of the area. It's really
Exactly.
right, literally a decoration, a decorative effect, while
Stagnant.
while the gentrifiers come in, buy up the property, so they're so they can live in a Blackish, ethnically interesting enclave. What is the point? But yes, that right there at this point, Afiba has been taken over by the city, and they have a weekly marketplace. And I went to the grand opening, and they were telling people that, yeah, this is, you can have community programs here, you can do this, you can do that. Absolutely dispossessed, again, a truly community generated space, right? Practices, and truly grassroots generated institution, care under the custodianship and caretaking of a brother of your same heart, Dante, right? Who kept the doors open. That place hosted memorials.
Everything.
It hosted baby showers. I had my mama's memorial and my baby's baby shower there, right? I know, Flo, her son's memorial was there.
Yeah.
Children's acting workshops, anything you can name. All kinds of people, from Black people from all stripes of the political spectrum, and a few other people from outside the community. And what the city actually did was remove that energy, and then come over, and what do they call it I think in the Bible? Built on another man's foundation. And now I don't know what the pretense is that this was their great idea. Jabari started that marketplace on the corner of Crunch. So
exactly,
that whole, it's the same, it's an extension of the Lemert phenomenon, right? We built this culture, the community made Lemert a dynamic cultural hub, and the folks in office are coming in to paint a veneer of, what was the language you used the other day, Dante? A shell, just a ornate shell around something that is fundamentally hollow. And that, so yeah, what do we do? How do we respond? How do we answer? How do we go forward and hold people that we elect accountable to meet the needs that we define,
I think and I will also just say, I think it's just by us, again, continue to come together. And it's difficult to place pricing around something that's invaluable. And
yes,
we don't have a price tag, even though we do have to put our thing, the number that we offer a lot of times is just so we can function. It's just, but that energy that keeps us alive with this culture is invaluable. It's infinite. You know what I mean? And so I think we have, as the time progresses, we start to create more structure around what is needed from a fiscal aspect for this culture to thrive, for everyone in this culture to thrive. We have to, that has to be displayed to our city officials. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you will have to give from your budget when you're the new mayor. This is the portion of your budget that you will have, without question, have to give to this West African dance culture, drum and dance culture, and or the African culture. You can include the whole continent of Africa, so everyone from the continent will be able to come and have a part. This is what you have to give in order, every year from your budget. And if that's that's not a question. And so I just think that, like, you have to put those things in place, like those, that's still a work, and again, what's above that? We're peeling back layers of racism. We still dealing with racism in 2023, 24. We still, well, you know, the fact that they have to create a budget for diverse people to be included. You know what I mean? The fact that that you have to create budgets, which says that something wasn't being done.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was being done, we wouldn't have to do it. So now that we have to do it, like now we know we have to do it, let's do it. Next year, okay, LA, City of LA, what are we doing? How many millions are we pouring into this culture? Not thousands. How many millions are we pouring into this culture so we can truly, you know, build that bridge? You know, we can build a bridge in Leimert Park that connects two wards, but where's the funding to build a bridge from this, you know, this cultural hub back to Africa?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And
Y'all, I have lost track of time. I did not mean to keep you till
yes,
4:50.
yes, I do have another.
Shame on me, bad moderator.
It's all good.
No, it was all
Run out
good.
for a show.
It was so wonderful hearing from you. And our parting question that we ask at the end of each of these programs is, how does the preservation and practice of traditional African arts move us to the world, to a more just world, to the world we want? Yeah.
Well, I think Dante hit on that a second ago, but I'd like to say that we always should preserve what we've done in our foundation, to remember the people who did the work.
Mm-hmm.
Always remember the people who did the work. And I'm just going to take a minute to say thank you, Alake, Atia, thank you, Tasha, Fumi, Masamala, everybody, those who have passed and now who are still living legends. We had to preserve their names. It was hard work. Like Dante says, it's a whole embodiment of knowledge you have to encompass to be a teacher, to be a cultural ambassador. It's a lot of responsibility. So, you know, thank you, Dante. Thank you, Tasha, for this. This is so much needed. I appreciate it so much that you included me.
Oh.
And I still have hope that the culture will still press on. It won't die. It can't die because we're not dying. And we're going to pass it on. We have a lot of work to do, but it's doable.
It's doable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Same question, Dante, if you want to add to or reiterate anything that you said. How does the preservation and practice of this get us to a more just world?
It's this, you know, I always tell my students, you know, especially like my students, when some of them miss class, you know, some of my students down at UCSD, you know, I asked them, did they feel the difference without, you know, the rest of the other students here? Because they usually have to work harder, you know, in class when it's only a few people show up. Them people, that's the only. I'm not gonna teach what I didn't plan. I'm gonna teach what I plan to teach. Y'all just gonna have to work, and you can't hide behind anybody, right?
Right.
Two lines.
two lines. Then, you know, there we go. Y'all gotta still go around, come back around. You know that we're not gonna cheat it. You know, so. I always ask them at the end of class, how do you feel? Just to make people check back in. Now that with this vibration of this drum is installed in this open vessel, because you had to be open to take this class. Some of them ain't even know what they was doing. Some was kicking around, feeling around. You had to be open. How do you feel now that your vessel is full of this vibration and these new words? Like, how do you feel? Oh, I feel great. I feel great. Oh, wow, I feel good. I said, so look around. There are people who you can probably name in your family, people you can name in the village who aren't in this room right now.
Mm-hmm.
People who couldn't make it here tonight. Some people had caught in traffic. Some people had plans change.
Mm-hmm.
You are now responsible for taking that energy to them. And be it a FaceTime call, a phone call, whatever, a carrier pigeon, you're now responsible for passing on how you feel to someone who couldn't be here.
That's right.
And so that, you know, that I feel that practice will kind of bring us into a more just world, you know, and it will help us to, you know, sort of develop the world that we want. Because I'm like, if there, you know, if in our great houses here in the world that make decisions for humanity, if this culture was present every day before the president, you know, when he got out of bed, he had to go downstairs, you know, to a West African dance class or a djembe class before he got on the, you know, step on the podium to address the country. What type of world would we have? You know, they had the West African dance class once a week in the mayor's office here in LA. What type of city would we have? You know, we have
Right.
to ask ourselves these questions when this, you know, healing modality is, you know, Mama Zinga mentioned earlier, is present in our houses that make decisions for the people who can't make decisions for themselves. What type of world will we live in? And so that's how I think, you know, that is the secret of moving us to a just world, is taking the things that are uniting us into the houses that are making the decisions. And if we fail to do that, then we fail to heal the people in the manner in which they were supposed to be healed.
That's right.
And so, family, I love you guys.
Thank
I
you,
will say
Dante.
that I have to sign off. I have a show
Yes.
that will require me about an hour to drive.
Oh,
Thank you so much for
that's
Have a
right.
good one.
Tasha. Thank you all so much, Mama. And, you know, love you
I
all.
love you
Thank you
too.
so much, and I hope to connect with you at some other side. To my people watching, y'all get to these classes and support this culture. You know, let's do it while we can. Thank you, Joko Collective. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dante.
Ashe. Ashe.
Love.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Thank you, Dante.
And James, welcome. We were so sorry to miss you. We had to carry forth. We carried on. We certainly did miss your input and the information about about Capoeira. And
Well, I have a recommendation for that,
go
but we
ahead.
can talk about that. We can go over that after we close.
Okay. Go over your recommendation after we close?
Yes, it's
Okay.
really for later.
Okay. All right, got you. Got you. Okay, well, very good. Mama Nzinga, my love always. My love
And
always.
back to you always.
Yes, indeed. And thank you.
This
Thank
has been great, and I'm proud of you. And keep the fire going. Call
Yes.
me whenever.
Yes, ma'am. And we
Thank you.
certainly will.
You too, Yusuf, and Brother
Thank you.
James.
This was wonderful.
Yes.
And I guess we're signing off.
We're signing off. We can go to that Asante Sana side.
Okay, so
if you want to.
I will do that then. And also just make sure that everyone on YouTube knows to subscribe, like, and tell your friends next time. Share.
Yeah.
Asante Sana.